The other day, I was sat waiting eagerly for some new canvases to arrive. And I had this realisation. I just realised it's been 1 year since I become a full-time artist. And in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what I've learned in this time. And we're going to paint something pretty cool too. First though, we need to get this canvas ready. One of the first things that I've learned is about materials. They do make a difference when you're trying to create professional quality work. And I've started to realise that I can't be cheap when it comes to materials. I've actually got to spend some money. I'm also taking the time to prepare my canvas with a few extra layers of gesso to really make sure that my surface is ready to take the paint the way that I like. The next thing that I've learned is that it's okay to use the tools that we have available to us. For instance, using a projector to get your image onto the canvas. For me, it's much faster and a much more efficient way than gridding or freehanding my image. However, one thing I've noticed when I've been using the projector is that it can tend to restrict me a little bit, almost like I'm scared to colour outside of the lines. So one thing I'm trying to do is just be a little bit more free with my paintwork and not rely on that initial drawing too much. Cool, now I can actually start painting. Ah, crap. Gotta just do some admin tasks first. One of the things that people don't realise when you're a full-time artist is actually how little time you actually get to create your art. There's things like updating your website, building packaging materials, fixing broken packing materials, managing your accounts, exhibition prep, social media, responding to comments, contacting buyers. Have I got the artwork for you? They hung up on me. Marketing, and so much more. It just seems to never end. Cool, I'm done with all that and I can finally start painting. Oh crap, how is it the weekend already? Just get back to it. I've learned that I need to take much more time with my paintings. There's no point rushing a piece just to have it finished in time for some self-imposed deadline, which for me was usually caused by social media pressures. I'm learning to be much more careful with the beginning stages of my paintings and treating them just as carefully as the final layer. Even if it's abstract or not very detailed, I'm still trying to be controlled and meaningful with my brushwork. It's also really easy to let your art business take over your life, but you still have to take time for yourself. Which means getting outside, going to the gym, going fishing, hanging out with your mates, whatever it is that makes you happy. That being said, it's still really important to treat painting like a job, which means getting up on time in the mornings. I said waking up on time in the mornings. Oh, fine. That's more like it. Sometimes I wake up really excited to get on with my day, other times not so much. The way that I keep myself motivated and keep myself on track with what I need to do is by writing little lists. Before I go to bed each day, I will write a list of 3 or 4 things that need completing the following day. Obviously, things don't always go to plan and they don't always all get completed, but at least it gives me something to aim for. I'm on day 2 of this piece now, and I am actually struggling a little bit. I want to go a little bit more abstract with it. I want to make a mess, go splashes and drips and all sorts, but I'm a bit limited by what I can do in my studio because it's such a small room and it's inside my house. I don't want to make a mess, so I'm going to take this outside and go and see what I can do with it. Back in the studio now with another lesson that I've learned in my year being a full-time artist. I know it can be really tempting, but one of the things that I've learned is that you shouldn't try to compare yourself with other artists. You want to develop your own style, and you don't want to be trying to create art like anybody else. You need to do you. Like, I'm trying to just have fun with my work, I'm trying to experiment with it, I'm trying to enjoy the process. And if I was just constantly trying to create work like someone else, I might end up missing the things that make my work special. So this next year for me is about embracing my uniqueness and going on a journey trying to figure out what I want my work to say, what I want it to be, and how my work is going to be special. Work that nobody else can create. I'm also trying to let the paintings evolve as I paint them, rather than having a plan that I stick to throughout the entire painting process. So I'm adding things to the painting that weren't in my mock-ups. So for example, those birch trees and the log that I'm painting now. Over this year, I have just started to understand how important it is to allow yourself to be free with the painting and let your creativity take over. I don't just want to recreate photographs. I want to create paintings that are unique, they have life, they have energy, and they have movement. And they say things that a photograph can't say. I've been treating my mock-ups like step-by-step instructions on how I want my painting to turn out. But I've learned a much better approach is using that mock-up like a guide. It's there to start an idea, but it's not what the final painting will look like, because things get added along the way. And that brings me back to that first point of not being too restricted by my initial drawing and my initial plan. It does feel a little bit like colouring outside the lines, but that's just something that I have to get over if I want to try and make the best art that I possibly can. As a full-time artist, money is a big thing. I'm doing okay, but it's not a consistent income. There are ups and there are downs. As an artist, sometimes you could be earning over $10,000 a month, and then some months you could be barely getting by. The important thing is to just make sure that when you're having a good month, you're putting some of that money away for the months that are a little bit slower. It's also really important not to get disheartened if you do have a couple of bad months in a row. As long as you're still making your art, you're making stock, and they will sell eventually. I am a little bit more careful now with my money now that I am not in full-time employment, but that's just because it's not a consistent income. And if I'm being very honest, I can do all of the things that I was doing before and more because I have so much more time and freedom now. Just really quickly, because you might be wondering what I'm doing here, I thought the composition was lacking a little bit, so I added some sunbeams just by glazing on some darks and some lights using a sponge. The masking tape was there just as guidelines for that. I actually got so frustrated when I was painting this piece, and I was so close to just yeeting it out of a window. But I didn't. I persevered, and that is one of the final lessons that I've learned over the course of this year. It's all about giving myself time to make mistakes and allowing myself to try to correct them. Freaking out about a painting that isn't going well happens all too often because of the pressure that I put on myself to make completed, saleable work all of the time. But I'm learning. Not all paintings work out, and it's okay to stop and start again. It's also okay to step away from a painting for a few weeks, or even months, or even years if you've got the time, and then come back to it with fresh eyes. Sometimes that time away gives your mind a chance to focus and come up with brand new, fresh ideas for the piece that you wouldn't have thought of before. The reason that I was getting frustrated with this piece was because to me it felt like everything was just a little bit flat, and it felt like lots of two-dimensional objects painted on top of each other, like a background, a midground, and a foreground. Once I sat down and walked away from it for a bit, the sunbeams that I added just took it to a completely different level, and I hadn't planned those sunbeams. I just sort of put the masking tape on and jumped right into it. And I'm really glad I did. I think it helped establish a little bit of 3D space in the image. Everything seemed to link a little bit better. Rather than just 2D layers all on top of each other, it felt like an interconnected piece. I'm so much happier with how it's turned out, and I will show you the finished piece in just a minute. In case you're wondering, I am using my own Studio Wildlife brush set for these paintings. That is one of the other things I've done this year. There are only 59 sets of these left, and the reviews have been fantastic, and it would be amazing if we could sell out. I'll leave a link to those in the description, but now I'm going to finish the painting. Before I show you the finished painting, I just want to say a massive thank you for joining me this year, and if this is the first video you've watched, like and subscribe. Anyway, here's the painting.